Hello, my friends. Wiggle here. Hope the day finds you well, doing good. So, I wanted to talk today about intentional community, what it is, why it's important. Now, the idea of intentional community is a big topic, and it'll take a long time to talk about all the different facets. But I wanted to start off. I feel that intentional community is very important. It's a key part to being human in these days because I'm not sure if you're aware, hopefully you are by now, that there's a lot of problems in society. And the centralization, the globalization, and just the direction that society is going, all the major aspects of it, it's just not going in a good direction. And it's going in a direction that's basically opposed to what's good for humanity. The system is not going to do us any good. Politics and religion, our education, media, they're all control mechanisms. Money itself is a control mechanism. And the nature of money is changing, ever changing. Inflation is devaluing wealth. And with the new digital currencies that'll be coming, it's going to change the nature of money altogether. And the problem with money is that those that issue it, that control it, they can retract and expand it, and they basically can buy the whole world with nothing. It's a parasite class. They don't really produce anything of value. They just take from all of us that do bring value. And we're all just slaves to the dollar. And it's how do we deal with that? What's the answer to that? What is the solution to that problem, to that challenge? How do we get on a good course? How do we get things back to being more human, the way that I think the human being was intended to live? I think society is going in a direction it's just not good for natural born humans. It's just the nature of humanity is being formed and shaped, and it's not for anyone's good. The family has gone downhill, and family values and basic morality, natural law have all been it's all being pushed in a bad direction against the natural order, against that which is life giving, life affirming, and sustainable. So, what do we do about it? Well, the answer to that, the short answer is intentional community. Now, what does that mean? That means we need to redesign society in a way that is localized, highly localized, low input, self reliant, self sustaining, more based on the land and not on money in the system. It really boils down to you need money to live, or you need people working together and cooperating to live. And if you're one of the ones that says you can't live without money, well, that's probably true. If the money gets broken, you'll probably die. If you say you can't live without money, I accept that as truth. I think what's important is that we figure out how to live without money or put money in its secondary role as we use that as a means of exchange to get the things that we cannot get for ourselves. That being said, the main sustaining life affirming, life supporting food, water, sewage, energy for heat and cooling and for work, the basic things we need, that needs to be filled as much as it can be without money, and money is the secondary. So if you need your teeth fixed, or you need to buy tires for your tractor or your car, or diesel fuel, the things that are a lot harder to do for yourself, especially at the start, that's what we need money for, not the day to day living. Not the day to day living. Yes, and you pay taxes. Pay taxes. Give them their money. They don't need your money, but they want your money because it's a form of control. If they can write blank checks, they don't need your taxes. That's the reality of it. Your taxes aren't paying for anything. It's just your usage tax. It's your compliance to the system. And fine, it's just money. Give it to them. Money is really not that important. And if you're working together with enough people, it's not hard to get. So give them their taxes. That's probably the last and final use for money, their money. There's other ways of exchanging value without using the monopoly money that they give us. But that's an aside. So intentional community is the solution to that because you're working with each other and you're supporting each other in life. And you don't need money to do that. In fact, if you get out of the realm of commerce, which is using dollars, a lot of the legalities go away. If you're giving things away, if it's a gift economy or you're trading things or bartering things, it's not under the jurisdiction of their admiralty law, their commerce law. That's not common law stuff. We've long since left common law behind, and now we're on this color of law. We've given them jurisdiction over everything. You can't get married without a license. Really? Can't have a baby without a birth certificate? I think you can. Again, that's another story for another time. The point being is we need people more than we need money. The only thing that money is good for is just getting you the stuff that you can't do for yourself. And you have all these other people doing their jobs, and you can use money to get that. But you can live without it, by and large. Sometimes you need it, but it can be secondary. It's a secondary tool in the toolbox. People are the first and most important. So being together, close, geographically proximate, like being close enough to live, where you don't have to get in a car and drive many ever miles. They're within walking distance or a bike or a horse or whatever you got to do, but they're close and you see each other regularly. You pass by each other in life. More of the village setting. To me, that's an intentional community, and there's already a lot of intentional communities out there. That's a very broad term with a lot of different manifestations. You could consider a church an intentional community. You can consider the chess club an intentional community. You can consider whatever. There's a lot of different organizations and clubs and different communities. But what I mean is the intent of supporting one another in a life affirming way with natural resources that are close at hand. To me, that's the answer to not needing money. Because we all have to have what we need to live. If we can get that for each other and share it, either barter it, exchange it, or just gift it to one another. Yeah, heaven forbid we actually be generous and giving of things that are essential, and let people work in their strengths and help each other on a local level. Yeah, wouldn't that be something? But then you need less and less from the outside world, and I'm not necessarily talking commune because that is certainly a form of intentional community. But I feel there's a lot of problems with that, and maybe that's a different discussion. The kind of intentional community I'm looking for, that I'm thinking about, that I'm discussing, is one that we're there for each other and we're living, and that's what we need. Not commuting and not over the internet, which is fake, not true friendship. I mean, it's good and all, but it's not enough, and it's not real. It's digitized. It's electrons being passed back and forth. You can't hug your computer screen. You can't hold their hand or lift them out of a ditch. It's not real. It's not real enough. So when I say intentional community, I would say not online. I'd say physical presence and people that are actually willing to cooperate and look out for each other. And again, that's a pretty broad term that can look a lot of different ways. And I'll just go ahead and go into one of the things in this intentional community space. Those that are really having the conversation and doing the work, experimenting, trying to live it, by and large, it is a very small portion of segment of society, but it's a lot of the leftist, the collectivist approach. It is the commune approach. And honestly, I think there's too many problems with that approach. Even the big ones, Twin Oaks. I don't know how well they're living. Is this camera not focusing? Hmm, that's odd. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. Hey, I do have a new mic. Hopefully that's working better than that other thing I had. That this is what I've been using. It just seems like it cuts out and stuff. So trying to improve the experience. Anyway, tangent. The collectivist approach, I think, has a lot of challenges because it brings things to the lowest common denominator. And yes, human beings have equal rights, and all human life is important. But there are different stations in life. People are at different points, and they have different capabilities. Making everybody equal, as it it brings things down because it's not a position of strength. I'm very much about individual liberties and individual rights, certainly, but there are different outcomes for different people, and not everybody is due a fair share if they're not doing the work. And when you have this more collectivist approach, it drags things down. Everybody's wanting everybody else to take care of them, and there's not enough strength in the whole. It's a few people really doing the engine, being the engine doing the work, and then there's a lot more people taking. And it's again, this is kind of a parasitical type situation. And I'm not putting down people that can't do their part, but the community has to be strong enough as a whole to enable that. And that is very challenging because we're in building stage. It's like you can't build it and not have a net gain. If you're trying to build a community, everybody has to be putting in more than they're taking. And in the collectivist approach, everybody's taking more than they're giving for the most part. And there's not a net gain and there's not enough of a, so it's a diminishment of lifestyle. And it becomes the tyranny of one. If you're using consensus model, well, the one person holding out, it is the tyranny of the one. They can stop the whole thing, no matter what their reasoning is, no matter what their agenda or their experience or their knowledge base. It's like they can throw a wrench in the whole works. And in collectivism, I think everything dies in committee. I don't think you get much done because you can't even get started. The whole thing has its legs cut off before it even starts. And this may be wrong, but I've been observing for a long time and studying and watching and asking questions and listening to conversations. And I'm just not sure the collective approach, it is idealistic and it has some good intention behind it, but I don't know how much it plays out in a real world. I think there's a lot of problems with that. People have to earn their life. You have to work to eat. You have to do your part. And it sounds unfair, but this is just the way of the world. Yes, help people and be generous, but it's not by force. It's not two wolves and a sheep voting for what's for dinner. That is the mob rule. That is never a good thing. I don't think the democratic method really works unless it's in the proper context. So the democratic method, as long as you're in with peers. And the problem, not everyone is a peer. And I'm not trying to say anybody's better than anybody else. It's just there are stations in life, there are capabilities and capacities, and everyone is not equal. They're equal in value of human life, but they're not equal as far as in terms of leadership and decision making. Some people, I think you need to earn the right to have a say in certain things. It's not just a given. And that's where I think that collectivism fails completely. And what does it look like? I'm not saying capitalism, even though I like a free market. I'm in favor of that. It's but what we have is in this country is not really capitalism. What we have in this country is corporatism and crony capitalism. It's not real capitalism. It's not a free market. It's the corporations dictating to the government, which dictating to everybody else how it's going to go, and it's not a good thing. That's what we're actually trying to replace. We're trying to get that out of the picture and just not rely on the corporations, but I rely on my neighbor and my friend. And so I think individual participation, individual ownership, I think that it all has to be a willing, voluntary type situation. Collectivism is not really always voluntary, it is more mob rule. So it has to be voluntary on an individual level. And that is a completely different structure. So when we say intentional community, I think we're going to have to invent our own. We're going to have to do something new and different, not based on the leftist agenda and the collectivist approach. There's a lot of problems with that. I see in terms of life affirming and self sustaining, not putting it all down. And as far as the conservative side of it, what do we really have? Churches, civic organizations, maybe, you know, but that's not enough. That's not an actual community that I'm talking about where you're. So I think you have to have um, homesteads, basically, in a neighborhood living close to each other, and that little village setting of individual homesteads, that can be the community that works. But within that, you have a smaller circle where it's an individual homestead and you have a family that stays together, works together, and doesn't split up. It's more encouraged that the cousins and the aunts and the uncles and the grandfather and everybody is the multi generations stick together and look out for each other and strengthen each other with education and wisdom and then this the power of youth helping, but it's governed somewhat by the wisdom of the elders. And these smaller circles of families, but it needs to be more than just family, I think. I think it needs to be extended to bringing in outsiders and allowing them to participate, to learn, and to help run and do the work that it takes. And, you know, in return, they get room and board and kind of like bringing in the widows and orphans to do that kind of thing. People that, and by orphans, I mean people that just, they don't have a family. By widow is someone that just doesn't have a husband. It doesn't have to, it's a broader term, I think, than we may consider. But you bring in people and they work and help, and they also get the benefit and the protection of being that nuclear family kind of setting, more of a clan type setting. No, I'm not talking about a cult or anything like that. It's all voluntary. It's not religiously motivated. It's like there's enough latitude that people can just be who they are and believe to a point what they want to believe, as long as it's not harming anybody. As long as there's no harm being done, everybody can just kind of be their thing. The main thing is we're just working together. And if it's life affirming, if it is not forced and not hurtful, then it's good. And if it is hurtful, then you have to deal with it. And that's a whole nother thing. The rule is just voluntary and life affirming. And if you have that, I think that's enough in a very basic sense. So overall, I say that the intentional community is the answer to globalism and the system at large, the status quo, a lot of very harmful things designed against what is really good for us. I think the only way is the intentional community, but it needs to be a broader definition than what it might look like now. I hope I made my points on this, so I'm going to go ahead and end this, and I'm going to see what I had to say and get back and continue with this on the next part. So I do appreciate you listening. Please let me know what you think. Please weigh in on the conversation. If there's something you want me to talk about, let me know, and I'll give you my opinion on it. And it may be worth nothing, but it may be insightful and helpful as well. So At any rate, please be the light walking in dark places. And until next time, this is Wiggle Out.